Hello and thank you for joining me. I'm Mack, and in today's episode of Mack's Hacks, I'm going to be talking about perfect plastic putty here. Perfect plastic putty is a water-soluble putty, which is great. There's not a lot of smell to it. If you have to do your hobbying like in a living room or a bedroom or something, it works pretty well for that. You don't have to worry about choking yourself or your roommates or your family out of the house. The nice thing about the fact that it is water soluble as well is once it dries, rather than sanding it, you can use a wet cotton bud to kind of wipe it off. Works really well for things like the wing root of airplane models and that sort of thing. Today we're going to be working on a couple of second-hand crisis suits I picked up. And you can kind of see on the jump packs there, bring it up there, there's some significant gaps and divots from where the previous owner cut off the sprue gates. Tried to sand them down here. There's a really big divot there, if you can kind of see that there. So that may not be a perfect plastic putty fix. That may be something else. So they're both kind of the same way here. So I'm going to take a piece of cardboard here as my palette. And then just squeeze from the bottom, which I never do. And I'm just going to kind of get a bead down here. Now you can definitely use this stuff straight, i.e., move that so it's still in frame, there we go. Just put some on the palette, take your applicator of choice, in this case I'm using a toothpick, and slap it on. In its natural state, it's like toothpaste consistency, very similar to like Tamiya putty, the extra fine stuff. And this works, so I'm going to just take it straight and kind of put it on there. And the nice thing, because we can use the wet cotton bud to wipe it off, is if we were to get some, say, on this little detail here, the little kind of cylinder thing, I'm just going to intentionally slather some on there. And up here as well, kind of take that and so you can see we got a fair amount on that little detail there. And this is going to work fine. It's going to work absolutely fine. But what I like to do personally is take a little bit of water, and before it all soaks into the cardboard. Usually I use foil for this, but it's getting a little freaky with the camera going on. So I'm just going to mix it in with some water and some putty and kind of have a goopy paste going on. And I'm just going to work it. I'm going to take my other suit here, and so that guy's got a pretty big divot there too, which I don't think is very good for this stuff. And like I said, I like it wet. It just personal preference. It seems to kind of settle into cracks and crevices a little easier. Because you are mixing it with water, it does shrink some. So if you're filling like a really big area with it, you're probably going to have to do a couple coats of it. So I don't recommend that. And because it is water soluble, if you do like wet sanding, you may remove the putty a little faster than you intend to. It is a little bit softer, I think, than the lacquer-based or whatever the kind of stinkier putties are, like the Tamiya or the Squadron, Bondo Spot Putty. So if you're going to use this for big areas, you might be disappointed a little bit. You might be better off using one of the kind of stinkier, in my mind, better putties for that application. they do dry a little bit harder, a little bit quicker. So this is very much a specialty product, but in its little niche, it works exceptionally well. I'm told Vallejo putty works very similar to this. I have some on order, so I will be testing that out in a future video. We'll try it kind of on that divot here, and you can see what I mean by shrinking here. So I'm going to build up over the surrounding area, because if it shrinks, we kind of want to shrink down and still be over. So I don't know if you can kind of go this way here. You can see we've built up a decent coat here, and we're going to go ahead and let that dry for, I usually let it dry for about an hour or so, but I'm going to check the back of the container here. It doesn't really say anything. Alright, and we're back. I ended up letting these dry overnight, which was not the plan. Usually about 2 hours will be more than enough to let the putty dry and harden. But longer is obviously not going to affect it in any way. So I went ahead off camera and filled in some more areas on the crisis suit, and a couple that should be pretty useful for showing how tight you can get in there. You know, corners like this with the head on and everything be pretty difficult to get with sandpaper over here, and down here as well, kind of where the backpack attaches to the suit itself. The same on this guy here. This suit, this is where we put the putty in straight without mixing with water, and then on this side is mixed with water. So we'll do this guy first, just so you can kind of see what, if any, differences there is between the two methods. And my water here, some of your standard issue cotton buds, Q-tips. Most of these are from, I think, the dollar store. And I also have a few of the fancy Tamiya Q-tips, cotton buds. These are wound real tight and have a nice point on them. Really good for getting into the tight spots. I'm just going to dip. And it kind of helps to pre-wet it a little bit, let the water soak in a bit, just to help it thin up. And see, there is the, we intentionally got some on the detail so we can watch it kind of brush off. So I'm just going to get a little wet here, and then I'm just going to start wiping it off. Get a little bit closer so you can see. So there you go. And then on that detail there, that little disc detail, you can see it getting wiped right off. There's some kind of in that little ledge there, so we can take our Q-tip here, our Tamiya Q-tip, and just work the point in there to wipe it off. Better grip on it here. And there you go. Looks like there's some more up on the top part here, so go ahead and get that in there. And if you don't care, if, like I said, it's purely accidental application, you can use things like your knife or a pick or whatever to kind of work it off as well. Just again, kind of break my feet off here. And just kind of almost kind of scrub it off there. So in that build-up area, it's where that bit of a divot was. So it is kind of building that up in there. This little spot there. And just kind of pat it dry. You don't want to necessarily wipe it because you may wipe off more of the putty. So there you can see, filled in a little bit of that divot there. So that's kind of shallow and deep, or wide. I may end up using super glue for that, for kind of this part here. There's not a lot to grip for the Perfect Plastic Putty, so that might not be a good application for that. And then on this side is the side we mixed the putty with water. Grab a new cotton bud here and kind of pre-wet it again. And this seems to come off much easier. Which is why I like mixing it with water. It comes off easier. I'm not using it usually, the Perfect Plastic Putty, for big fill jobs. So shrinking is less of an issue than it would be normally if I was mixing it with water and trying to kind of blanket apply it. I'm just trying to get, you know, little cracks and stuff that are hard to fill. You can kind of see on there. And then here, yeah, like this neck joint here, which could be kind of an issue to sand, especially over here if you didn't want to take the head off. And then back here, we've got on the little fin here, I'll help if I got it in frame, the fin, the little 90-degree angles here between, I don't know, the vent and the fin. So for that, I'm just going to take my nice Tamiya cotton bud and kind of work it. It's even hard to get on camera. And kind of we'll just work that point in. These Tamiya cotton buds are fairly expensive, but you get a decent amount, and they're very tightly wound. They hold that point really well. So they're worth having for special applications like this. I also use them on the airbrush sometimes to really get in to the nozzle and stuff. So I'm just kind of using the body of it to clean up the larger areas, and then the tip to get those. See, it's hard to get on camera, 90-degree crevices. And this really wasn't a divot or anything. I just wanted to put some on there to show you how to get it off. So, like I said, lasting a long time. I mean, I used one end for all of this stuff, so. And then here's that difficult neck joint with the head and everything in there. You're not going to want to try to get sandpaper. So I'm just going to kind of use the body of this. Looks like the alignment was a little bit off. There's a bit of an edge catching there. So get my paper towel in there. Yeah, it looks like I should probably try to get a file in there first. There's a little bit of a raised edge going on that's catching the cotton bud. There we go. Still using that kind of messed up side that I've been using. And just working it around. Look at the dry cotton bud here so you can soap up all the water. There we go. So that's Perfect Putty in a nutshell. Like I said, I've been told the Vallejo plastic putty is identical or very similar with the same kind of properties, being able to wipe it off with water. So I've got some of that on order, and I'll do a video maybe doing one half of a model with Vallejo and one half with Perfect Plastic Putty, and seeing how it works out. So if you like the video, please comment, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. I have a blog article on this that'll be linked below on my website, mackthemaker.com. Have a good day.